The purpose of this video is to provide an overview of the 5 essential components of reading and explore how these essential components are integrated into Experience Core tutoring sessions. Training objectives that are supported by this video. Examine the components of literacy and effective strategies to use in literacy tutoring. Increase the effectiveness of tutoring skills by introducing the dynamics of the tutoring sessions. Section 1. Understanding the importance of literacy development.
The essential skills that students need to master are being able to break apart, if they get to a word that they don't know, what are some strategies that they can use to figure out what the word is and continue reading fluently. So do they know their phonics? Do they know their letter sounds? Can they break apart a word and then blend it back together to read it? Can they chunk the word? So if it's a word that has many syllables, can they break apart that word into the syllables and then blend it together again to read it? We call the 5 components of literacy the big 5. The first is phonemic awareness, which is the sounds in a word. The second is phonics, which is the sound of letters and then combining those sounds to make words. Then we go into vocabulary, teaching children new words and understanding what those words mean. Comprehension as they're reading, making sure that they're able to comprehend what they're reading. And then a fluency, which is the speed or rate that they read, or what we call reading with prosody, reading how we speak. For phonemic awareness, you can have cards with pictures on them, and then as you say the picture, such as pig or cow, the child will break up the word into sounds. Ox, there's that one we practiced.
Ox.
You did it. Kite.
I.
Beautiful. You can also have maybe little chips, and then as they say each sound, they push the chip up, and then that way the child identifies one sound per chip, so they recognize that a word is broken up into sounds. For phonics, we have what we call lines of practice, where you can lay a sentence strip in front of the child, and they read each letter, or they say the sound that each letter makes. Here is a sentence from our story. Again, we have a green dot, and each word you're going to read. If you don't know the whole word, say the sounds in the word and then put the sounds together. Green dot, go.
Zach had
On.
pop.
Say
Zach sat pop on a can.
Yes. You can also have word cards, which are easy word cards that you can break up into sounds, and then they'll say each sound and blend it together to make a word. Last word, green dot, go.
Just at Zach.
Yes, yes.
Jam.
Excellent, remember the dot.
Jam.
Perfect. Oh, you are pros with these words. When you're going into vocabulary, you can take the vocabulary words out of the text that you're going to read, and you can what we call front load, and you can talk about those vocabulary words and their meanings before you even read the selection. That way the child has some background knowledge before you read the text.
Now that is
Cartilage.
Yeah, that's cartilage. And it's bolded because why do you think it's bolded?
Because it's a vocabulary
It
word.
is. And what is cartilage?
Cartilage is
Kind of-
humans' bones in their ear.
Yeah, kind of the same material as our ears. When we feel our ears, we're kind of soft but yet tough.
That means that there are not many
Then when you get into the text, you can stop after certain sections and ask them to find text evidence, or they go back into the text and point to the answer in the text. Yes. If there are not many tigers left in the world, there is a special vocabulary word. What vocabulary word does that mean? If there's not many left in the world, point to the text evidence. What does it mean? They are, yes, yes. There's not many left, yes. If there's not many left, they are what, Asia? Endangered. There's not many what left, Jennifer, in the world?
Tigers.
Tigers. I want you to whisper. As far as fluency, a strategy for fluency that I use is after we read the text for comprehension and vocabulary, we'll go back and read the whole text without any interruptions, and that helps the kids to understand what the right rate of reading is.
The males can weigh almost 500
Don't slow down,
pounds.
keep going. Bengal tigers eat mostly deer and cattle. And that way it helps them to read like we talk. And we always have discussions about what that sounds like. So none of you were reading like robots, which is great. You were all reading fluent. But remember, we don't want to read like this, because none of us talk super fast like this. Because if we talk super fast like this, nobody would understand us, right? Yeah. So if we're reading like this, then it's too fast. So sometimes you can go too fast. You want to make sure that you're only reading like we talk, like we speak.
Section 2. Promoting literacy development through tutoring strategies.
Students are always at a different level, so some literacy strategies aren't appropriate for them. So for example, a second grader most likely doesn't need any phonemic awareness strategies because they can break apart a word into sounds. A second or a third grader may not need the phonics skill where they have to know letters and their sounds. They might just need help with multisyllabic words, words that have lots of syllables, and chunking them and getting them together.
Do you think animals are cave?
Okay.
Both.
Yeah. That was great. Say the word again.
Capable?
Yes, excellent.
So you really have to know your student, know what grade level they're at, and that's something that you could always ask the classroom teacher or your school contact as far as what is it that a second grader needs to know to read fluently, or is it okay if I go back to phonics? So having that close relationship with the teacher or the school contact will really help knowing the appropriate strategy to use for each student.
When we get into the Experience Core groups, and we're looking at small groups for Experience Core, we try and make sure that the children don't have too much of a variance in each of their groups, so that we look and see how did they score on those different skill areas. And we try and not get too much of a spread. But we know that even if you have an ability group for phonics skills, you have variance there. So what a tutor needs to do is use strategies such as some partner reading with the children that are liked, and A-B, and then if there's one outsider, then that becomes the tutor's special partner. You can really then know, especially if you're looking at fluency and comprehension, that they're matched and they're getting the skills they need while you're working a little more one-on-one with that child that needs extra help.
The program model, it will vary from location to location and school district need to school district need. By and large, it is sustained tutoring, and that can be a one-on-one situation where a tutor works directly with a child, or it can be small group, anywhere from 2 to 4 children working with a tutor. Whether you're working directly one-on-one with a child or whether you're working with a small group, it's going to be the same set of skills that you're going to be reinforcing. It may be a little easier to work one-on-one, but then again with 2 to up to 4 children, it may be fun for children to work with their peers in a group as well. Your structure of your session is not going to change. It's just that you're going to have to make sure that you're pulling your group of children, if you've got 2 to 4 children, that you're making sure that each individual child is participating. And so it may just take a little more enthusiasm and energy to make sure that everyone is on track.
Please make sure that your finger is pointing to the word that we're reading, because there's 4 of you and there's only 1 of me. So I look around really fast and I make sure that you're pointing to the right word. That way I know that you're just not copying your neighbor, you're really reading the word that we're reading. There are some literacy strategies that are more appropriate for small groups versus individual. When you're working one-on-one, that child has your undivided attention all the time. When you're in a group, you don't necessarily have that. So a great strategy is having partner read, and that way you can lean into the child and listen to what they have to say, or you can have 2 children who are still practicing their fluency while you're focusing on another child and helping them with some words that were difficult for them to read. Thank you for helping your partner.
To the
Jam.
Good. Clarity and Shayla, you're reading first? Oh, you are absolutely right. Thank you for correcting me. She went to the title. Go.
Zap the rat.
You're following.
The rat.
You're going to listen to Shayla read, okay? It's really important to differentiate strategies in the 5 components of literacy, because a child often does get bored with one strategy, and if you change it, it helps the child to see that there's different ways to do something. So you're not only teaching them reading, you're teaching them, oh, if this way doesn't work, then let me try this method and see if that works.
You always want to make sure that you're watching the children you're working with. So each day is a different day with any person, and then children are the same way. So they come in and they might be tired and hungry, and they might not read as well as they did the day before. So you want to make sure that your strategies are a little fresh so that they're on their toes and you're on your toes. We try and make sure that you're doing strategies that are successful. You don't want to try something new all the time, because it really doesn't help with the skill that you're working on.
When a volunteer sees that it might be time to change a literacy strategy is when the child doesn't respond to what the volunteer is asking them to do. For example, if they're doing phonemic awareness and you're using cards with pictures on them, sometimes the child won't respond, or they might not even look at the picture, or they'll just break apart the word, but they're not really saying each individual sound. So sometimes if a child gets tired, you can tell that they're tired of that strategy. They don't respond to you. Sometimes they'll just mess around with, if you're using chips and they're supposed to push them up, they'll mess around with that, or they won't really give a full effort. And a lot of times children just want something fresh. They want something new. You're doing the same strategy, but you're just doing it in a different way.
We're both going to play bingo, and you're going to get to challenge me as well. All right, and let's see if I know my letter sounds.
A lot of times it's with the pacing, so it's not necessarily changing a strategy, but you might pick up the pace. So sometimes if the pace is too slow, the child won't respond to you and your strategy because it's just not, they're lethargic. It's not the speed that they want to go. So sometimes you can pick up the pace as far as, let's read that smoother, let's read that quicker.
Let's have you do that one more time, okay? And maybe just do that just a little faster, okay? Can you do that? But we make sure that when you do it, every word is correct, okay?
Tim is at the pen with the pet. The pet can nap in the...
A child's learning style will impact the strategy that the volunteer is using immensely. So what might happen is that a child is very kinesthetic. They need to stand up, or they need to bounce around, or they need to sit on their foot, or sometimes, some of the volunteers, they know that a half an hour is a long time. So in the middle of it, they'll say, why don't you go get a drink of water and come right back? So they know that that child needs that little mental break. Sometimes the volunteer will have the child hold the book that they're reading, so that, or the shared literature that they're reading together, because they know that the child just can't sit and listen. So if the child's holding it and the volunteer's reading it, then they have a job, the volunteer has a job, and it's kind of a working relationship together. Another strategy is that a lot of our students are more verbal, and they know that they're struggling in reading. So our volunteers are very cognizant of really listening to the child and allowing them to speak, and not just, oh, we have to read this, we have to get through this book, we have to do all these components to our lesson. They really get to know the child and let the child kind of guide where they're going, and validating the child's feelings for that day.
The key to teaching any literacy strategy, whether you're doing it one-on-one or a small group, is to watch your children and know and observe You have the kinesthetic learner, you have the auditory learner. So sometimes in a small group, you need to be making sure you're cognizant of how children learn. Some children need to hear the word and then they get it right away.
Okay, one of those tricky words, loyalty.
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 Whereas others need to hear it, see it, say it, spell it, all of that. So they're auditory, visual. So sometimes when you're working with a small group, you just need to make sure that in your basket of goodies, you have everything available. So you have the word on the card, you have a picture, you have a book that might connect it to a text. All of that would be a strategy or a tool of the trade that you would have.
Section 3. Supporting and Impacting Literacy Development.
Some of the literacy strategies that a volunteer tutor will use will be exactly what that classroom teacher has taught. So they are teaching the whole class specific set of skills depending on the grade level. That volunteer comes in, and for the children that need that extra attention, that extra practice, that's exactly what they're doing. They are reinforcing the skills that have been taught in the classroom. So they're really providing, as a lot of teachers will say about the program, this is like icing on the cake. This is that extra layer that children very often don't get. The teachers don't have the time to individualize. They don't have the time to either work one-on-one, which is a teacher's dream, or work in a small group. And so a lot of children just need that extra time and attention, and that's what the tutors do. Research says most children, when they read a passage or they're learning a new skill, it takes 5 to 7 times. For some children, it may take more time. Some children have parents that speak the same language and will spend some time with them or have the time to spend with them to help reinforce what they've learned in the classroom. Other children may not have that situation, and so they still need that extra time and attention. They still need that reinforcement. And so that's where our tutors come in. They're there to really provide that extra practice for those children. The volunteer can have just an amazing impact. They are so invested in making a difference. That's what draws them to the program. This is very meaningful to them. And a lot of them will say, I really want to leave a legacy behind, and I really feel that this is my way of making that contribution. And I want to know that I've made an impact in a child's life.
You got every single word right, and you thought you weren't going to be able to do it all by yourself. That was really good.